When the hot August sun is still high in the sky, it's time to think about fall planting. We might still be in the thick of tomatoes, peppers, and okra, but the nights have already begun to cool and the season is winding down. I'm trying to contain my excitement. Fall is just around the corner. As a gardener, you've always got to keep one eye on the future. For instance, if you can clear the garden and mulch your no-dig beds in the fall, you'll have a bed that's ready to plant into come spring, and your season will get off to a much better start. Some hardy annuals love to be planted in the fall. We learned this in our old garden when the nigella, chamomile, larkspur, and orleia, without any prompting from us, dropped their seeds and began to grow in the fall. The plants stayed small and green all through the cold Ohio winters, only to take off with vigorous growth and early blooms come spring. Some vegetables also love the cooler fall temperatures. And fall is a great time to plant a fast-growing cover crop to improve the soil structure. I'm not here to pass myself off as an expert on fall planting or any kind of planting or cover cropping for that matter. I've gardened for a grand total of 8 years and have only overseen the garden for 1. My scant experience with cover crops was when Dad would sow a thick stand of winter rye in his garden at home before tilling it under in the spring. Now I don't have experience, but one must start somewhere. My garden could use a heavy dose of organic matter, so the plan is to sow buckwheat into the empty beds for now and follow it later with winter rye. It might be an ambitious plan, but it sounds like a good one to me and my sandy garden soil. So, we are clearing the beds of tired summer flowers to make room for what's to come. Some of the plants obviously need to go. They are not happy with the August heat wave. But even the first planting of zinnias that is still going strong needs to go. We've got to make room for carrots, beets, cabbage, onions, garlic, lettuce, kale, and spinach. What I love most about gardening, especially gardening in a new garden and zone, is experimenting with timing, placement, and varieties. And let's be honest, if I can call it an experiment, the failures don't sting quite as much. Failures like the dahlias, who seem to be very indignant with where I've planted them. Where have I planted them, you ask? In Arkansas. I'd been warned that dahlias don't do well here, but I'm not quite ready to give up on them yet. There was a fair amount of gardener error this year too. The dahlias threw a fit, but that might have been directed at me as much as the hot and wet and dry and beautiful summer. I will also be tucking a few flowers into the garden this fall, biennials mostly. Foxglove, to put a finer point on it. I think I will also direct sow some cool season annuals like larkspur, nigella, orleia, bachelor buttons, beplorum, and chamomile, all the ones I mentioned earlier. And hopefully we'll find room for some ponca blackberry canes. We picked some locally this summer, and they were the most delicious blackberries I have ever popped into my mouth. You know what I love most about fall? It gives us a chance to begin again. Rarely does life serve up such a satisfying ending. You get to rip up a disappointment by the roots. You get to tidy a weedy and overgrown place. You get to remove something that is no longer serving you, something that's adding to the guilt and the overwhelm that you feel. I think it's like the equivalent of a Facebook unfollow button. I love the twinkle in a gardener's eye when they confess that they've bush hogged the garden or tilled it under or took a weed whacker to it. The garden is here to serve us, and when we no longer need it or what it's producing, we can let it go. So if you're still in the thick of it, keep going. And if your season is winding down too, autumn is about to show us how beautiful it can be to let something go.